I never thought cleaning offices would lead to something like this, but here I am, spilling it all because I need to get it off my chest. One night, while wiping down the CEO's desk in our Tokyo high-rise, I found a note tucked under his keyboard. "Meet me in the penthouse tonight." My heart skipped when I opened his drawer for a pen and saw a hidden photo of a little boy, maybe 4 years old, smiling with the CEO's same eyes. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a random invite. It was a trap waiting to explode. I'm 28, working as a cleaner for a big tech firm in Tokyo's Shinjuku district. It's not glamorous, pushing a cart through empty halls after hours, dealing with coffee stains and crumpled papers. I moved here from a small town 5 years ago, chasing stability after a messy divorce that left me broke and alone. My ex took everything, including my confidence, so now I scrape by on this job, sending money back home and crashing in a tiny apartment that smells like instant ramen. Loneliness hits hard. I barely talk to anyone outside work. The CEO, let's call him Kenji, is 35, runs the show like a king. Sharp suits, endless meetings, always on his phone. Everyone whispers he's untouchable, but I caught glimpses of his stress, like the way he'd pace his office late at night, and it started small. I'd notice him lingering when I cleaned, asking about my day in a way that felt too personal. "Long shift?" he'd say, his voice low under the hum of the air conditioner. I brushed it off as politeness, but then came the favors. Extra pay for special tasks, like organizing his files. One evening, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, he handed me a coffee, the warmth seeping through the cup into my cold hands. "You work harder than half my execs," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I felt a spark, but ignored it. "I'm just the cleaner, right?" And that's when I realized he was testing boundaries. NTHE note changed everything. That night, after my shift, I stared at it in the dim elevator light, the paper crinkling in my grip. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity, and honestly, the thrill, pulled me up to the penthouse level. The doors opened to soft jazz playing faintly, and the smell of expensive cologne mixed with takeout sushi hit me. Kenji was there, tie loosened, pouring wine. "You're my invisible muse," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear as he leaned in. We talked for hours, him complaining about boardroom politics, me nodding along, but then his phone buzzed. A quick glance, and he silenced it. "Nothing important," he said, but I caught the caller ID, X. That was my first red flag, a knot in my stomach tightening. As the night wore on, he got closer, his hand brushing mine, the cool glass of wine contrasting the heat in the room. "Without me, you'd still be scrubbing floors forever," he joked, but it landed wrong, toxic, like he owned my future. I laughed it off, but inside, doubt crept in. And that's when I knew I was in over my head. The photo from his drawer flashed in my mind, a symbol of secrets he wasn't sharing. Was this just a game to him? NBY morning I snuck out, the elevator dinging softly as I descended, heart pounding. Back in my routine, I couldn't shake it. The note now crumpled in my pocket, a constant reminder. Little things escalated. He'd leave tips in envelopes, but with strings, like, "Stay late tomorrow." The office lights felt harsher, the vacuums whine louder in the silence. I told myself it was nothing, but deep down, I sensed the power imbalance growing. And that's the moment I started questioning everything. The next few weeks were a blur of anxiety and late-night shifts. Every time I pushed my cleaning cart through the office, I felt Kenji's presence looming, even when he wasn't there. The note stayed in my pocket, its edges fraying, a constant weight like the photo of that little boy I couldn't unsee. I kept replaying his words, "You're my invisible muse," and the way they sounded sweet but felt like a leash. I was just trying to do my job, but now I was tangled in something I didn't sign up for. One evening, while mopping the conference room, I overheard Kenji on a call through the cracked door. His voice was sharp, the words clipped. "She doesn't suspect anything, just keep it quiet." My stomach dropped. The air smelled of stale coffee and toner, and the fluorescent lights flickered, making my shadow dance on the floor. Was he talking about me? Or the kid in the photo? I froze, mop handle cold in my hands, realizing I was in deeper than I thought. That was the moment I knew I couldn't just ignore this. NTHE next escalation came at the company's annual gala in a glitzy Tokyo hotel. I wasn't invited as a guest, just there to clean up after. But Kenji insisted I stay nearby, slipping me an envelope with cash and a whisper. "You deserve to see how we celebrate." The ballroom sparkled under chandeliers, the clink of champagne glasses filling the air. I stood in the shadows, watching him charm investors, his laugh loud and fake. Then he caught my eye across the room, raised his glass and winked. My face burned. People noticed. A colleague muttered, "What's she doing here?" And I felt small, exposed. That's when I realized he was playing a game, using me to stroke his ego. NTHE public humiliation hit later that night. As I cleared plates, Kenji sauntered over, his cologne sharp in the crowded room. He leaned in, too close, and said loudly enough for others to hear, "You're just the cleaner, Aiko. Know your place." The words stung like a slap, and a few execs snickered, their eyes darting away. My hand shook as I gripped a tray, the metal cold against my skin. He'd built me up in private, only to tear me down in front of everyone. And that's when I knew his charm was a trap. The note in my pocket felt heavier, a symbol of how naive I'd been. Back at my apartment, I couldn't sleep, the hum of my cheap fan mixed with the city's neon buzz outside my window. I kept thinking about that photo, wondering who the boy was. Was Kenji hiding a family? A divorce? Something worse? I started noticing more red flags. How he'd leave meetings abruptly when his phone rang. How he'd ask me to shred files without looking at them. One night, while cleaning his office, I found a locked drawer. My heart raced as I jiggled it, the metal clanking softly. I didn't open it, not yet. But the temptation gnawed at me. That was the moment I started planning. And I confided in Hana, a friend from the HR department who'd always been kind. Over cheap ramen at a 24-hour diner, the smell of soy sauce thick in the air, I showed her the note. Her eyes widened. "Aiko, you're not the first," she whispered. "There's been talk about Kenji and others. Check emails if you can." Her words hit like a punch. I wasn't special, just another pawn. The note and the photo weren't just symbols anymore. They were evidence. And that's when I realized I had to protect myself before this went any further. Hana's words stuck with me, buzzing in my head like the fluorescent lights in the office. I wasn't just paranoid. Kenji was playing a dangerous game, and I was caught in it. The note in my pocket and the photo of that boy were no longer just secrets. They were my leverage. I had to act, but every step felt like walking on glass. One wrong move, and I'd lose everything. My job, my stability, my tiny foothold in this city. I started small, keeping my eyes open during my shifts. One night, while dusting Kenji's office, I noticed his laptop was still on, screen glowing faintly in the dark. My hands trembled as I hesitated, the hum of the hard drive loud in the silence. I didn't have his password, but I saw an email notification pop up, a subject line about custody agreement. My pulse spiked. That was the moment I knew the photo wasn't a fluke. There was a kid, and Kenji was hiding him. I snapped a quick photo of the screen with my phone, the shutter sound deafening in my head. NTHE next day, I met Hana again, this time in a crowded cafe, the clatter of cups and espresso steam masking our conversation. I showed her the photo, and she frowned, stirring her latte. "He's going through a messy divorce," she whispered. "Rumor is, he's hiding assets to screw over his ex. You're not just a fling, Aiko. He's using you to distract from the drama." Her words hit like ice water. The note wasn't a romantic gesture. It was a calculated move. And that's when I realized I had to dig deeper. I started checking his desk more carefully, my heart pounding every time I heard footsteps in the hall. One evening, I found a key card in his jacket pocket, tucked in the closet. It was sleek, black, with no label. Just like the note, another symbol of his secrets. I slipped it into my pocket, the plastic cool against my fingers, knowing it might unlock something big. Later that week, during a late shift, I used it on the locked drawer I'd found before. Inside were documents, legal papers, bank statements, and a custody agreement with his name. The boy in the photo was his son, and Kenji was fighting to keep him hidden from his ex-wife. My hands shook as I photographed everything, the paper rustling under my touch. That was the moment I had proof. NTHE escalation peaked at a team meeting I wasn't supposed to attend. Kenji had asked me to drop off coffee, a task that felt like another power play. As I set the tray down, the room buzzing with execs, he barely looked at me, but later, in the hallway, he grabbed my arm. "You're too sensitive, Aiko," he hissed, his grip tight, the smell of his aftershave sharp. "This is for your own good. Stay quiet and you'll go far." It was another toxic jab, dismissing my instincts as weakness. My face burned, but I nodded, playing along. Colleagues passed by, their whispers like static in my ears. And that's when I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. NH's Anna became my lifeline. She told me about an HR protocol for reporting misconduct, but warned it could backfire. Kenji had allies in high places. Still, she offered to help me draft a complaint, her voice steady over the phone, the city's neon glow flickering through my window. I spent nights compiling evidence. Screenshots, the keycard, photos of the documents. Each click of my phone felt like defiance, but also fear. If I did this, I could lose my job. If I didn't, I'd lose myself. The note and keycard sat on my table, symbols of my choice. And that's when I realized I was ready to fight back. With the evidence piling up, I felt like I was holding a live wire. Dangerous, but empowering. The note and keycard were constant reminders, tucked in my bag as I pushed my cart through the office. Every night, the hum of the vacuum cleaner drowned out my racing thoughts, but the fear of getting caught gnawed at me. I knew Kenji's world could crush me, but I wasn't the same scared woman who moved to Tokyo 5 years ago. I had to draw a line. NMY's first move was calculated. I met Hana at a park bench near the office, the cherry blossoms falling softly, their faint sweetness mixing with the city's smog. I handed her copies of the photos and documents, my hands steady despite the knot in my chest. "If this goes south, you'll back me up?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes serious. "He's done this before, Aiko. You're not alone." That was the moment I felt a spark of courage. I wasn't just fighting for me, I was exposing a pattern. And I drafted an anonymous complaint to HR, detailing Kenji's behavior, the note, the penthouse, the toxic comments. I included the custody documents, hinting at his personal schemes bleeding into work. Sending it felt like jumping off a cliff. The click of my laptop echoed in my tiny apartment, the screen's glow harsh against the dark. Hana promised to push it through discreetly, but warned me. HR protects the company, not you. I knew the risk. My job, my visa, my life here could vanish. But staying silent wasn't an option anymore, and that's when I realized I'd crossed a point of no return. And Kenji started acting strange. He stopped lingering during my shifts, but his glances were colder, sharper, like he sensed something. One night, while I cleaned the break room, he cornered me, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows. "You're playing a dangerous game," he said, his voice low, the smell of his cologne suffocating. My heart pounded, but I held his gaze, clutching the note in my pocket like a shield. "I'm just doing my job," I replied, my voice steady. He smirked, but it was forced. That was the moment I knew he was rattled. NTHE countermove escalated when Hana got a tip from a coworker. Kenji was trying to spin a story that I was unstable, planting doubts with HR. I felt betrayed, but not surprised. I doubled down, sending a follow-up email with more evidence, including a recorded clip of him saying, "Know your place." My phone's recorder had caught it during the gala, the clink of glasses faint in the background. I also reached out to a lawyer friend back home, who advised me to document everything. Each step felt like defiance, the key card in my bag a symbol of my growing resolve. And that's when I started feeling like I could win this. NTHE office buzzed with tension. Colleagues whispered, avoiding my eyes, but Hana kept me grounded. She slipped me a USB drive with backed up files, her hands brushing mine, the plastic cool and reassuring. "You're doing the right thing," she said. I clung to that, even as doubt crept in. What if Kenji turned this around? What if I lost everything? But every time I wavered, I remembered his words, "You're just the cleaner," and the photo of that boy, caught in his lies. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for the truth. And that's when I realized I was ready for whatever came next, no matter how messy it got. The storm broke faster than I expected. A week after my complaint, HR called me into a meeting. The room was sterile, the air heavy with the scent of fresh printer ink and the hum of an overworked AC. I sat across from two HR reps, their faces unreadable, while Kenji's absence felt like a ghost in the room. They slid a folder toward me, the paper crinkling under my fingers. "We've reviewed your claims," one said, her voice clipped. My heart sank, expecting a brush off. But then she added, "We found inconsistencies in Mr. Tanaka's conduct." That was the moment I knew the tide was turning. NTHE investigation moved fast. Hana had pulled strings, leaking just enough to force HR's hand. They'd cross-checked my evidence, emails, the custody papers, the gala recording, against Kenji's expense reports. Turns out, he'd been funneling company funds to hide assets from his ex-wife, using late-night meetings as cover. The photo of his son, tucked away in that drawer, became the key to unraveling his lies. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about a pattern of deceit. And that's when I realized I'd struck deeper than I thought. And Kenji's downfall was public and brutal. At the next board meeting, streamed to the whole company, the chairman announced his suspension pending further review. The office TVs flickered, showing Kenji's empty chair at the conference table, a symbol that hit harder than I expected. Whispers spread like wildfire. Colleagues who'd snickered at the gala now avoided my gaze. Later, I heard he'd been demoted, his golden reputation tarnished. He tried to save face, sending me a text. "You'll regret betraying me." It was his last toxic jab, but it felt hollow. I didn't reply. That was the moment I felt free. I didn't escape unscathed. HR offered me a settlement, compensation for workplace distress, and a new role in facilities management, a step up with better pay. I took it, knowing it was their way of keeping things quiet. The keycard, still in my bag, felt like a trophy, a reminder of the line I'd drawn. I moved to a better apartment, one without the constant smell of ramen, the city's neon lights, now a backdrop to my fresh start. Hana and I stayed close. She'd risked her own neck to back me up, and I'd never forget it. And that's when I realized I'd rebuilt something stronger than before. Looking back, I see how close I came to losing myself. Kenji's charm, the penthouse, the note. They were bait, pulling me into a game I didn't understand. But that photo, that small boy's smile, woke me up. It wasn't just about my job or my pride. It was about standing up to someone who thought he could control me. I still clean offices some nights, but now it's on my terms, with a title and respect I earned. The city feels different now, its pulse less suffocating, the clatter of trains outside my window, a rhythm I can live with. And I'm not naive anymore. I know power games don't end, and people like Kenji don't vanish. They just move to the next target. But I'm stronger now, with boundaries carved in stone. The note's gone, shredded, but the lesson stays. I wonder about that boy sometimes, hoping he's okay, far from his father's mess. As for me, I'm moving forward, one step at a time. But I can't help asking, have you ever ignored a red flag because it felt like a chance at something better? What did it cost you?